Recording begins in a moving vehicle. Road noise. Wind against glass. The occasional indicator signal. We left the harbor 40 minutes ago. Hannah is driving. I'm in the passenger seat with the closure document on my knee and the nautical chart folded on the floor by my feet and the recorder in my hand. The window is open because she said she needed air, and I didn't argue. The road is following the coast. I can see the water intermittently between the buildings and the hedgerows. Dark, flat, unremarkable from a car window. 40 kilometers that direction. Below that, 50 meters of sea. Below that, the seabed. Below that, a metallic structure that is currently producing a rhythmic signal at 11-second intervals, because I heard it from the dock as we were leaving, and I don't believe I imagined it. The objective for this recording is LV Morwenna, the light vessel. What she is, what condition she's in, and whether anything aboard her connects to the access condition. Hannah identified her 3 days ago. Hannah stood at the gangway and did not board. The window is now open, and we have approximately 32 hours remaining, and we are driving toward a decommissioned ship that maintained a manned observation station at the route coordinate for 43 years. I want to understand the light vessel before we arrive. I want the explanation on tape while it's still Hannah telling me, before we're on board and everything becomes immediate and the recording becomes reactive rather than deliberate. I've learned in this investigation that the interpretive work, the work of placing new evidence in context, happens better before you're standing in front of the thing. Once you're there, your attention narrows. You see what's in front of you, and you stop holding the wider picture. So the car, the road, Hannah driving, the window open. 20 minutes before we arrive, I ask Hannah to tell me what she knows about Morwenna. Everything she found in the 3 days before she called me. She drives for a moment before she answers. Not hesitation. She's deciding where to start, which is different. When Hannah hesitates, she goes still. When she's sequencing, her hands shift slightly on the wheel. LV Morwenna, built 1928. Steel hull, approximately 50 meters length overall. Painted red, which is the standard color for British light vessels, makes her visible in low visibility conditions from a distance. She carried a crew of between 7 and 11 men, depending on era, rotating on a schedule. The station she was assigned to, designated Station WRAITH on Admiralty charts from 1931 onward, was approximately 4 kilometers northeast of 51.4 degrees 1.2 degrees E. She was anchored to station. A light vessel doesn't move. She sat at that coordinate for 43 years. I ask about the station designation. WRAITH. I noticed that too. I don't know if it's significant or if it's standard Admiralty naming practice for that era. I've found 11 other station names from the same period. 3 of them are conventional geographical references. The other 8 are designations I can't find an obvious source for. WRAITH is one of those 8. What I want you to know before we get there is what I found in the station log abstracts. The Heritage Trust that maintains Morwenna digitized some of the operational records, crew logs, maintenance records, station reports. Not everything, but enough to search. I ask what she found. 3 entries. Across 43 years, 3 entries in the official station logs that reference an anomaly at the station position. The rest of the logs are routine. Weather, shipping traffic, maintenance, crew rotations, normal operational records for a light vessel on a quiet station. Then 3 entries separated by years that are different. She pauses. She's deciding how much to give me at once. I've noticed she does this with significant information. Parcels it into sequences so I can process each piece before the next one arrives. It's the same instinct that made her wait at the gangway for 3 days. The first entry is from 1947. The duty officer logs what he describes as a regular subsurface disturbance, his words, regular, at the station position. Duration approximately 20 minutes. No visible surface effect. He notes the interval as approximately 11 seconds. He attributes it to seismic activity and files it as a routine observation. No follow-up in the records. I think about what it means to attribute something like that to seismic activity. Seismic events are not regular. They don't pulse at consistent intervals. They don't produce a rhythm. A duty officer in 1947 who described a regular subsurface disturbance with an 11-second interval and wrote it off as seismic activity was either genuinely confused about how seismic events work, or he knew exactly what it was, and he wrote seismic activity because seismic activity was a thing he could file without further inquiry. I don't say this to Hannah. I write it down and keep listening. The second entry is from 1962. Different duty officer, same description. Regular subsurface disturbance, approximately 20 minutes, 11-second interval. He files it differently. He marks it as a recurrence and notes that a previous entry exists. He does not speculate on cause. He requests guidance from the station authority. There is no recorded response in the digitized records. I ask whether no response was normal, whether requests for guidance frequently went unanswered in that era. Not in the log records I've looked at. When a duty officer on a light vessel files a request for guidance, there's usually a response, even if the response is to continue current practice. The absence of a recorded response might mean the response was given verbally, or it might mean the response was given and not filed, or it might mean the request was received and deliberately left unanswered. I ask about the third entry. Long pause. The third entry is from 1974, the year the station was decommissioned. It's the last substantive entry in the station log before the final closeout paperwork. The duty officer on the last watch describes the disturbance again, same parameters, but this time he adds a note that isn't in the standard reporting format. It's written in the margin of the log page. I ask what the margin note says. I'm going to read it exactly. I have it in my notebook. Station WRAITH decommissioned by order. Replacement buoy has no crew. The signal will go unrecorded from here. I do not know if that is the intention. I read it back from my own notes to confirm I have it right. She says yes. The duty officer on the final watch of a 43-year manned observation station wrote in the margin of his last log entry that the signal, the 11-second signal from beneath the seabed, would no longer be recorded once the crew left. And he didn't know if that was the intention. He knew the signal existed. He knew it had been observed repeatedly across the life of the station. He knew that replacing the manned crew with an automatic buoy would end the record of it. And he didn't know if that was the point. I ask Hannah whether she thinks the station was positioned at WRAITH specifically because of the signal, whether the light vessel was placed there to observe the coordinate rather than for navigational purposes. The navigational argument is weak. There's no hazard at that location that requires a light vessel. No shoal, no reef, no traffic separation issue that couldn't be handled by a buoy. Light vessels were expensive to maintain. You didn't put one somewhere for 43 years without a reason. She merges onto a wider road. The coast opens up on the right, a harbor wall, beyond it, open water. The question is whether the reason was operational or observational, whether Station WRAITH existed to mark a location or to watch it. We're here. The Heritage Dock is a converted maintenance facility on the edge of a working harbor. There's a ticket hut near the entrance that isn't staffed at this hour. 3 vessels in the dock, 2 wooden sailing boats under restoration with staging around their hulls, tools visible on deck, tarpaulins over sections being worked on. And at the far end, moored against a stone wall with fenders between her hull and the quay, a steel-hulled ship painted red. Approximately 50 meters. The hull paint is maintained, not peeling, not faded, a Heritage Trust paint job, probably recent. Anchoring equipment on the bow, a lantern structure amidships, unlit, the glass panels intact and recently cleaned. A boarding gangway extending from the quay to a gate in the hull railing. The gangway fitted with non-slip treads and a rope handrail. She is exactly what she looked like in the photographs Hannah showed me. A working vessel turned monument, preserved to look operational without being operational. The kind of preservation that keeps the form while removing the function. A small visitor information board near the dock entrance says, "Please sign the visitor log. Last boarding 16:30. No other instructions. No attendant visible." A clipboard with a carbon copy log sheet hanging from a nail. We sign. I note the time. 3 hours and 40 minutes remaining on the entry window. We stop at the top of the gangway before boarding. This is the point where Hannah stopped 3 days ago and turned back. I want to record the transition. I ask her if she's ready. She says, "I've been ready for 3 days." We step aboard. The main deck is open to the sky. Equipment lockers along both sides, the paint on them maintained in the same red as the hull. The lantern structure occupies the center of the deck, a cylindrical housing approximately 3 meters in diameter, sitting on a base that's welded to the deck, with the glass panels at the top catching the late light. Access hatches to the interior forward and aft, both closed with steel dogs. It smells of paint and rust inhibitor and salt in a concentration that's different from the harbor smell outside. Older, more embedded, the smell of a steel surface that has been in salt air for almost a century. Hannah goes immediately to the lantern structure. Not the interior hatches, not the crew quarters, not the navigation room. The lantern. I follow her. The lantern housing is approximately 3 meters in diameter. The glass panels, 12 of them arranged in a circle, are intact and clean, recently cleaned, the kind of maintenance a heritage trust does to preserve the visual. The light mechanism inside is not operational, but it's intact, the brass fittings polished. The base of the housing at deck level has an inspection hatch. Hannah crouches at the hatch. She doesn't open it. She looks at the base of the housing, the weld line where the lantern structure meets the deck. "Look at this." I crouch beside her. The weld line. Steel on steel. Around the base of the lantern housing, the weld is standard, continuous, utilitarian, the kind of work done in a shipyard in 1928. Except at one point. On the compass bearing that points toward 51·4°, 1.2 degrees E, the exact bearing toward the rook coordinate, the weld is interrupted. In its place, set into the steel, a small plate, approximately 10 centimeters square, different alloy from the surrounding hull. Older by the look of it. Much older. On the plate, a symbol. I look at it for a long time before I say anything. I want to be certain I'm reading it correctly. The symbol is small. The plate is 10 centimeters square, and the symbol occupies most of that area. But 10 centimeters at deck level, crouching in the available light, is not much to work with. I take out my phone and put the torch on it. I hold the light close. The symbol has a closed outer boundary, an enclosed shape, the same characteristic Hannah noted when she copied it from the southern node grid map. Inside the boundary, 2 marks. At the torch angle, the 2 interior marks are more legible than in natural light. They're not letters, or not letters from any alphabet I recognize. They're geometric. 2 short parallel lines, angled relative to each other, meeting at a point. Hannah is looking at the same thing. She's already confirmed it. She's now measuring the plate with a small folding rule from her bag. Dimensions, placement, the bearing it sits on. She does this with the same focused economy she brings to everything that matters. I watch her, and I don't interrupt. She finishes. She looks up at me. The bearing from this plate to the rook coordinate is within ½ a degree of exact. The plate faces the node. She closes the folding rule. This ship was built to face rook. She says it quietly, not dramatically, the way she says things she's certain of. I put my hand in my jacket pocket. I close my fingers around the key. From below the hull, below the waterline, below the harbor floor, a sound begins. Lothmic, 11 seconds apart.